A young, dumb, filthy man interacts with a blindfolded woman who turns out to be the famous and beautiful star lecturer Soo-hyun Kim. Not long ago, Miss Kim looked down on him, but within a month, everything changed. At a boarding school, a homeroom teacher holds class with her students. She praises a student with a perfect score, then turns to Soo-hyun. She criticizes him harshly, saying his Korean is worse than his English, even though he is not a foreigner. She points out that everyone else scored perfectly while he alone struggles with mistakes. She continues to speak down to him, claiming he never takes responsibility and always makes excuses. She even says that medical accidents happen because of people like him who push themselves into medical school without the ability to handle it. Soo-hyun sits there, wondering why he has to listen to this. The teacher lecturing him is none other than Soo-hyun Kim, the top lecturer at Ghana Cram School. When she first began teaching, many assumed her success came only from her looks. However, her strong teaching skills quickly made her famous, and students retaking college entrance exams often chose Ghana Cram School just to attend her classes. Korean is Soo-hyun's only weak subject, so he also enrolled. She is especially hard on him because they share the same name. She reminds him that finishing last 2 weeks in a row means demotion. This shocks him. She explains the school's level-based system and tells him he cannot keep up with Class S. She advises him to move to Class A, saying it would suit his ability better. She adds that if she were in his place, she would be grinding her teeth in shame and studying out of pure embarrassment. She says she is tired of constantly nagging him and points out that since she will no longer be in charge of him after today, there is no reason to waste any more words on him. With a dismissive wave of her hand, she sends him back to his seat. As Soo-hyun walks back, the weight of her words sinks in. He already knows that if his parents find out he has been demoted at cram school, they will be furious. His father in particular will have no patience for any explanation. Even if Soo-hyun tries to apologize or explain himself, his father will only say that anyone who fails to become a doctor has no place in the family. His father will refuse to listen to excuses, making it clear that the only acceptable outcome is for Soo-hyun to get into Korea Medical School and present the acceptance letter to them. With that in mind, Soo-hyun realizes that the upcoming exam tomorrow will decide everything. If he fails, he might actually be disowned. When he returns to his seat, he notices a small folded note on top of his book. Opening it, he sees that it is a study partner request from the female student sitting beside him. He recognizes her as someone unusually persistent, and he can't help but think about how much determination it must take for her to retake the college entrance exam 6 times. The situation feels strange to him because talking between male and female students is strictly forbidden, and individual study sessions are also banned by the school. A thought crosses his mind that she might simply be trying to get rid of a competitor. But Soo-hyun cannot afford to risk messing up the exam again because of a girl, so he crumples the note in his hand and decides to ignore it completely. Later that day, he lies in his dorm room, groaning in exhaustion. His roommate, Taemin Park, who is from Class D and comes from a wealthy family, notices his state. Taemin, whose own goal is to enter a university in Seoul, casually remarks that Soo-hyun's class seems to be working themselves to death. Soo-hyun replies that if he dies from overwork, it will be entirely the fault of his homeroom teacher, who never stops pressuring him. Taemin laughs at this and claims that being constantly scolded by her is actually a reward. He points out that there are plenty of students who dream of joining Class S for that very reason, calling it a privilege to be cursed at by the so-called Ice Princess. Taemin even admits that he wishes he were in Class S himself. Soo-hyun finds this attitude baffling and wonders aloud why so many people praise a teacher who treats her students so harshly. Taemin grins and explains that Class S is also famous for having many beautiful girls, with one in particular, Rahi-do, standing out. He notes that Rahi is the same girl who constantly bothers Soo-hyun with requests for partner study. Soo-hyun advises his friend to focus entirely on his studies and avoid creating unnecessary trouble, making it clear that the upcoming exams are too important for distractions. Taemin, however, ignores the seriousness in his tone and, with a playful grin, suddenly hooks Soo-hyun into an arm lock. He insists that he can handle his own studies just fine, but all he wants from Soo-hyun is an introduction to Rahi. Soohyun refuses without hesitation, reminding him that such a move could risk getting them expelled, and quickly taps out from the hold to signal surrender. Taemin finally releases him, acting as though nothing serious happened, and casually mentions that he picked up Soohyun's package earlier when collecting his own. He adds that the dorm supervisor has already inspected it, so there's no problem opening it now. This surprises Soohyun because Taemin almost never bothers with anyone else's deliveries and only ever collects his own. When Taemin asks if he wants to hang out for a while, Soohyun declines, saying he needs to prepare for the exam tomorrow. He reminds Taemin that if he gets demoted again, his life will essentially be over. As he finally opens the package, his expression changes sharply, catching Taemin's attention. Taemin immediately asks what is wrong, but Soohyun brushes it off, claiming it is nothing. Later, Soohyun is alone in the bathroom, staring at the package with unease. What lies inside shocks him. It is a prohibited item, something the school only makes available in advance to VIP students with special access. He turns it over in his hands, frowning, and wonders if it could possibly be meant for him. When he checks the label and carefully reads the name, realization hits him suddenly. Just as the thought forms in his mind, a loud bang echoes against his door, startling him. The sharp voice that follows is one he instantly recognizes. It belongs to his homeroom teacher, Miss Kim. Soohyun is in the restroom when the sudden sound of loud banging echoes against the door. He calls out that he is using the bathroom, but the voice that answers belongs to Miss Kim, his homeroom teacher. She asks if he received a package, and when he replies and that he has already opened it, her tone sharpens. She warns him that any prohibited item will be confiscated immediately. Soohyun explains that the dorm supervisor already checked it, but Miss Net Kim insists that as his homeroom teacher, she must personally examine it. She demands that he hand it over at once and even adds that if the contents are prohibited, he will be expelled without hesitation. Standing there, Soohyun begins to suspect her intentions. The thought creeps into his mind that Miss Kim might be trying to pin the prohibited item on him, and a chilling question follows. What if she is really planning to use this as an excuse to have him expelled? Before he can think further, Miss Kim manages to get inside. Her expression is tense, and she demands to know why it took him so long to answer the door. Her eyes quickly fall on the opened package, and one of the nearby students comments, almost defensively, that it is addressed to Soohyun and that he has been waiting a full week for it to arrive. Without hesitation, Miss Kim snatches the heck of the package from his hands, tearing away the last bit of wrapping. She peers inside, only to find an electric razor. Her brow furrows, and she fixes her gaze back on him, asking again if this is truly the only package he has received. Soohyun says it is, but she narrows her eyes and tells him to be honest, offering to let him off with only a warning if he admits to more. He points out that she has never checked his packages before, so why suddenly now? Her response is curt and unwavering. She claims it is a surprise inspection. She orders him to step aside and begins scanning the area, looking for anything he might be hiding. As her gaze sweeps the room, she delivers another blow, telling him that if he is unwilling to follow the rules or study properly, then he should never have planned to retake the exam in the first place. She ends with a cutting remark, saying it is always the foolish ones who end up breaking the rules. As Miss Kim searches through the room, her eyes land on the prohibited item tucked away inside the bathroom closet. Her expression hardens instantly. She turns to Soohyun with a look of finality and tells him that he has just blown his last chance. She says she will personally make sure his parents hear every detail about why he is being expelled. The words send a jolt of shock through him, but before he can respond, the bathroom door opens and Mr. Cho, the dorm supervisor, steps in. Mr. Cho's brows lift in mild surprise when he sees Miss Kim there and asks what she is doing since it isn't curfew yet. For a moment, she seems at a loss for words. He then asks if she is carrying out package inspections, stating that he has already checked all deliveries himself and that there should be no issues. Ms. Kim quickly recovers, explaining that the student is from her class and that she was simply doing a bit of counseling and inspecting his belongings, as he is still new and might not be fully aware of the school's rules. Mr. Cho turns his attention to Soohyun, giving him a sharp glare, then assures Miss Kim that she doesn't need to worry because he has the students under control. He changes the subject, asking how things are at the staff dorms. Mentioning that he is overseeing them this year, He tells her that he will be stopping by soon to check in. Miss Kim's face flickers with slight disappointment, but she replies that everything is fine. Mr. Cho insists that he still needs to make sure the staff dorms are well taken care of and adds that this goes double for her. With that, Miss Kim snaps at Soo-hyun to pack his things and get ready for self-study. She leaves alongside Mr. Cho, who casually remarks that Soo-hyun happens to share the same name as her. She responds curtly that this is the reason she has been paying extra attention to him. Once they are gone, Soo-hyun exhales deeply, relief washing over him. Under his breath, he mutters that for a moment he thought he was caught, but the dorm supervisor had unknowingly saved him. The relief quickly turns to frustration as he clenches his fists, furious at the way Miss Kim had tried to pin the prohibited item on him, despite the fact that she was the one who had been using it. Later in the day, Miss Kim sits in the staff room with another teacher, the two of them sharing a quiet coffee break. The female teacher speaks first, mentioning that she is feeling concerned about the students' scores for next week's mock exams. She then adds, with a reassuring tone, that Miss Kim has nothing to worry about and casually asks how many students she plans to send to Korea Medical School this year, reminding her that the chairman has high expectations since she always produces outstanding results. Miss Kim gives a polite smile but downplays the praise, insisting that she cannot let her guard down because teachers at other academies work just as hard and competition is fierce. In reality, those results are the last thing on her mind at the moment. As the conversation continues, her thoughts drift elsewhere, circling back to the earlier incident. She cannot understand why her package would be delivered to someone with the same name as her in the first place, and she even considers the possibility that the dorm supervisor might have taken it while inspecting deliveries. The thought makes her grip her coffee cup a little tighter. She feels a growing urgency to find out who has it before whispers start circulating among the staff and students. In a place like this boarding school, where schedules are rigid and entertainment is scarce, that particular item was her only source of personal amusement, and losing it is not something she is willing to overlook. The female teacher notices a slight crease in Miss Kim's brow and mistakes it for work-related stress. She remarks that it must be the department head giving her trouble again. She complains that despite the fact he does not even handle homeroom duties, he is constantly putting pressure on them about performance results. She recounts that earlier in the day, he was upset about students becoming too relaxed and ended up taking it out on the teachers, saying they need to run the school like the military. Miss Kim's attention shifts, and she asks what exactly happened to cause that reaction. The teacher leans in slightly, lowering her voice, and says that something unusual was found in the boys' dorms, prompting the administration to tighten room inspections. This immediately makes Miss Kim straighten slightly in her seat. She asks with a hint of alarm what it could have been. The teacher shrugs, explaining that, judging from the department head's anger, it was almost certainly something illegal. She adds that the student apparently confessed outright and even brought the questionable item directly to the teacher's office. At that moment, Miss Kim feels her pulse quicken. A single thought flashes through her mind. What if that student was Soo-hyun? The possibility jolts her into action, and she abruptly pushes back her chair, rising to her feet, until she reaches the door of the teacher's office. Just as she is about to enter, the door swings open, and Mr. Cho steps out. Both freeze in surprise at the sight of each other. She asks him directly what he is doing in the teacher's office. For a brief moment, he looks as though he is about to explain, but instead, he simply says it is nothing, and walks away without another word. Still puzzled, Miss Kim proceeds inside and goes straight to her desk. There, she notices a package box placed neatly on top. When she opens it, she is greeted not by documents or confiscated items, but by a banana with a folded note tucked inside. She stares at it for a moment, suspicion creeping in. Could this be the dorm supervisor's doing? Is this why he was at the office just now? Unfolding the note, she reads a short but pointed message. A threat to report her to the chairman about the prohibited item unless she meets the writer in the basement storage room of the main building after evening roll call. Her jaw tightens as she rereads the words. The tone, she thinks, reeks of Mr. Cho. It must be him. Later that evening, she stands outside the basement storage room, her arms crossed and her mind working through what she plans to say. She tells herself it is all just a misunderstanding, and once she clears the air, this will be over. Pushing open the door, she steps inside, only to realize instantly that the room is empty. Mr. Cho is nowhere in sight. What she does find, however, is a single chair in the middle of the room and the prohibited item placed neatly on it. Relief mixes with urgency as she strides forward, grabs it, and turns to leave before he arrives. But when she tries the door, the handle refuses to turn. It is locked from the outside. Her eyes narrow, and then she spots another note taped to the wall. Peeling it off, she reads its brief, infuriating instruction. Use it. A surge of rage boils up inside her, and she curses aloud. 3 hours earlier, Soo-yeon is standing in the dormitory, his mind working through the possible consequences of his actions. He understands that a single misstep could easily result in his expulsion, yet the thought that there must be a way to turn the situation to his advantage keeps gnawing at him. As he is caught up in his thoughts, an announcement from the department head echoes through the building, drawing immediate groans and mutters of discontent from the students. The announcement carries a sharp reminder that far too many students have already accumulated demerits in the past week, followed by a strict declaration that conversation and unnecessary physical contact between male and female students are prohibited. It is made clear that those who choose to continue dating will do so at the risk of piling up demerits and facing inevitable expulsion. This prompts Soo-hyun to suspect that yet again, someone has been caught breaking the rules. He begins to contemplate whether this might be the perfect opportunity to present the department head with an irresistible piece of bait, curious to observe the reaction it might provoke. With a slow, deliberate motion, he starts scribbling something onto a piece of paper, his mind already plotting the outcome. Elsewhere, Miss Kim is losing her composure entirely over a banana-shaped package accompanied by a threatening letter, her agitation rising with every passing second. In this moment of heightened tension, the department head arrives, having taken the bait completely, and makes his entrance with impeccable timing. His expression carries the weight of authority and barely restrained irritation as he addresses Miss Kim, holding up 2 confiscated books. He reminds her that this is only a single day into the semester, and already such questionable material is making its way around the dormitories. Although he has received a confession from one student and decided to overlook it for now, he makes it clear that Ms. Kim must start enforcing discipline without delay. He warns her that if the pass rate of the entrance exams drops, the blame will fall entirely on her shoulders. A statement she can only acknowledge in tense silence. Her mind flickers with suspicion, wondering what Mr. Cho might be scheming in the background. The department head's gaze then lands on the package resting on her desk, prompting him to ask whether she confiscated it. In a nervous attempt to avoid further trouble, she claims it belongs to her. Without missing a beat, he informs her that she will now be responsible for managing the boys' dormitory, and warns that should such incidents occur again, she will be held personally accountable. From a hidden vantage point, Soo-hyun watches the exchange unfold, his eyes glinting with satisfaction. The sight of Miss Kim being sternly reprimanded fills him with a deep, almost vindictive pleasure, yet the feeling does not satisfy him completely. Soo-hyun stands just outside the door, the sharp, repetitive thud of heavy banging echoing through the hallway. From inside, Miss Kim's voice rings out, demanding that the door be opened, her tone sharpened with anger and desperation. She even threatens to call the police the moment she gets out. The ferocity in her voice catches him slightly off guard. She is fighting back harder than he had anticipated. Still, he reassures himself that there is no way she could suspect him, as she would naturally believe the culprit to be Mr. Cho. Her voice continues, filled with escalating threats, and the pounding against the door grows more forceful. The corners of Soo-hyun's mouth curl upward into a grin as he imagines the desperate expression she must be wearing at this very moment. Even though he cannot see her face, he pictures it vividly, savoring the mental image. To him, this is poetic justice. If she had chosen to live like a decent person, she would never have found herself in such a humiliating situation. He decides to keep her locked in for a while longer before granting her freedom, letting her stew in her own frustration. But then the noise stops abruptly. The silence that follows is sharp and unnatural, immediately setting his nerves on edge. A sudden thought grips him. What if she has actually called the police? Anxiety prickles at the back of his neck. He leans closer to the door, straining to catch any sound from within, but there is nothing. Acting quickly, he slips the key into the lock and turns it, reasoning that if the situation escalates any further, it could spiral out of his control. He eases the door open just enough to peek inside and is taken aback by the sight before him. She is actually carrying out the action he had requested earlier, something she had initially refused with firm defiance. Moments later, she stops and seems to register that the door is no longer shut. A flicker of confusion crosses her face as she appears to wonder how long it has been open. Without hesitation, she steps out into the corridor, her voice carrying a promise that she will not let this go unpunished. From his hidden vantage point, Soo-hyun watches her move away, his body tense until she disappears from view. Relief washes over him. He had come dangerously close to being discovered. With quiet steps, he makes his way back toward the still open door. Soo-hyun sits in the classroom, his posture slouched and his expression weighed down by exhaustion. His gaze drifts toward Miss Kim, who stands at the front of the room delivering her lecture as though nothing unusual had occurred the previous day. He studies her carefully, unsure whether her composure stems from a complete lack of shame or a calculated attempt to feign normalcy. On the surface, she appears unbothered, moving briskly as she writes across the chalkboard, but beneath her steady pace lies a flicker of unease. The after effects of the previous day still linger in her thoughts, and though she tries to maintain her image, the tension remains. As she continues scribbling notes on the board, Miss Kim internally tells herself to dismiss the entire ordeal as nothing more than a strange, isolated incident. The important thing, she reasons, is that her prohibited possession has been returned to her. Whatever Mr. Cho might say in the future, she decides she will simply play dumb and deny knowledge of any wrongdoing. With this in mind, she pushes through the remainder of the class period, closing the lesson with a reminder for the students to review the day's material. Outwardly, she moves with the same confidence as always, determined to project the image of someone untouched by scandal. Back in the teacher's office, Miss Kim turns her attention sharply toward Soo-hyun, her voice cutting through the air as she questions his behavior in class. She complains about how he had been nodding off during her lesson, insisting that she is certain he did not stay up the night before cramming for any exam. The implication stirs a flash of panic in Soo-hyun's chest, and for a fleeting moment he fears she may have discovered the truth about what happened. Yet her words carry no trace of suspicion toward that incident, and he allows himself a quiet breath of relief. She continues to lecture him, berating him for not studying in advance, warning that a single night of desperate cramming will do nothing to prevent him from being demoted. Her voice does not let up, her criticisms relentless. In the midst of her scolding, Soo-hyun slips his hand into his pocket, his expression unreadable. He remarks coldly on her tendency to act like a perfectionist, despite being incapable of managing her own possessions. Without further warning, he tosses an item of her clothing at her, sending a shock through her composure. Her eyes widen in disbelief as she demands to know why he has her belongings. His answer lands like a strike. He tells her plainly that he was the one who locked her inside the storage room, adding that she should have been more cautious with her words. The truth carries the weight of something long in the making, and the memory of how it came to this plays in his mind. In that recollection, a female teacher casually asks Miss Kim whether there is a student in her class who shares her name. Miss Kim, with no hesitation, begins to speak disparagingly about Soo-hyun, labeling him as slow-witted and struggling even with his own native language. Unbeknownst to her, the other teacher recognizes the pattern instantly. Miss Kim has singled Soo-hyun out as her personal outlet for stress. What Miss Kim also fails to realize is that Soo-hyun is within earshot, hearing every degrading word she speaks. In that moment, he understands that her dislike of him had been rooted from the very beginning. He had not originally planned to take revenge in such a way, but when the opportunity presented itself in the form of her illicit possession falling into his hands, he could not resist. He reasons that if not for the dormitory supervisor's intervention, he himself would have faced expulsion over that very item. This fuels the bitter satisfaction of confronting her now. Miss Kim's face tightens, trembling with both fear and fury before she snaps back at him, ordering him to keep silent. She accuses him of failing to realize that his actions constitute a crime, but Soo-hyun knows well that she stands in no position to lecture him on righteousness. Soo-hyun, with a measured yet cutting tone, remarks that Miss Kim had been in such a frantic rush the other day that he even did her the courtesy of returning the belongings she had left behind. In his mind, this act should have earned him a reward rather than punishment. He presses the point further, wondering aloud who would suffer more if the matter were to be exposed online. He paints the scenario plainly. He is merely a troublemaking student repeating a year, while she is a nationally recognized star lecturer with a carefully cultivated reputation. He can always choose to attend another academy if necessary, but for her, the consequences would be devastating. The students in her current classes would no longer be able to concentrate under her instruction, their perception of her forever changed. He places the entire responsibility squarely on her, insisting that his intention the previous day had simply been to return her possession and leave matters there, as he needed to dedicate his attention to his studies if he hoped to be admitted into medical school. However, the way she treated him earlier, reducing him to nothing more than a target for her frustrations, had erased any inclination toward leniency. Miss Kim fires back, justifying her earlier behavior by claiming it was because he had been dozing off in class and not paying attention. To this, Soo-hyun responds without hesitation, holding her accountable and declaring that his lack of focus was ultimately her fault. Her expression hardens, and she counters with a sharp retort, telling him not to assume he has gained the upper hand. She points out that she has retrieved all her belongings, meaning he no longer has any tangible evidence to hold over her. Without proof, she claims, no one would believe his accusations. But Soo-hyun acknowledges that she has a point, and with a calm proposes a mutual understanding. He will keep his mouth shut if she does the same. As he turns to leave, he delivers one final warning, telling her to be careful if she wishes to preserve her title as the country's top star lecturer. With that, he slams the office door, leaving her in taut silence. That evening, Miss Kim is at her home, attempting to distract herself and enjoy her free time. Yet an unshakable sense of unease lingers, as though something essential is missing. The memory of her time in the storage room intrudes upon her thoughts, replaying in vivid fragments alongside Soo-hyun's earlier words. The next morning in classroom S, Miss Kim calls out Soo-hyun's name, instructing him to come forward and collect his test paper. As he rises from his seat, he notes the score printed at the top, 96 points. The number sparks a faint pang of regret as he wonders if he had made an error on the final question, cursing the decision to change his original answer. He braces himself for the usual first thing in the morning barrage of criticism, expecting her to seize the opportunity to lecture him as she always does. When he steps forward and accepts the paper from her, he begins to explain that he had changed his response on the last question. To his surprise, she responds with a calm and measured tone, telling him that tricky questions require careful reading to avoid falling into subtle traps, and advising him not to repeat the same mistake in the future. The absence of her usual sharpness catches him off guard, and for a moment he silently wonders if she had eaten something unusual for breakfast to cause such a sudden shift in demeanor. Adding to his confusion, she remarks that he is not the only one who had gotten that particular question wrong. The words are almost gentle, entirely devoid of her habitual edge. This unusual behavior unsettles him. He cannot help but suspect it has something to do with their confrontation the previous day. Perhaps his words had struck harder than he intended, and now she was tempering her approach. In truth, he had only meant to rattle her a little. Deciding to take a step back and watch for further signs, he accepts her comments with a brief acknowledgement. Later in the staff room, Miss Kim stands before the photocopy machine, of its operation filling the space. As she sorts the printed pages, she silently questions her own behavior. Why had she acted like that toward him? The answer, she concludes, lies in the strain that has been building up inside her, stress that had been simmering far too long. She reassures herself that she can control it. Opening her desk drawer, she resolves to maintain her composure and treat Soo-hyun as she would any other student, just as she managed to do today. The following day in class, Soo-hyun finds himself stuck on a particularly challenging problem. His pen hovers above the page as he debates whether to approach Ms. Kim for help. Normally, he would avoid doing so to spare himself from another round of her scolding, but her recent shift in behavior makes him hesitate differently. Perhaps she would be more patient now. Mustering the decision to ask, he waits for the right moment, but another student steps forward before he can speak, presenting her with a question of their own. Miss Kim turns her full attention to the other student, listening and responding with ease, while Soo-hyun remains at his desk. As he watches the exchange, a realization sinks in. He has been overlooked entirely. As Soo-hyun sits at his desk, still puzzling over the problem before him, a faint but persistent sound catches his attention. It has been there for a while now, subtly threading through the classroom's atmosphere, yet it is not the usual background noise from the intercom. The tone is irregular, distinct enough to unsettle him. His thoughts drift toward the possibility that someone might have smuggled a phone into the room, its alerts muted but still faintly audible. Then, in the midst of the quiet shuffling of papers and scratching of pens, Miss Kim drops something. The small object hits the floor with a soft thud before she bends down to retrieve it. As she moves, the sound becomes clearer to Soo-hyun, and in that instant, realization strikes. The noise has been coming from her all along. His mind reels at the thought, wondering in disbelief whether she has completely lost her mind or if she is doing it deliberately. The idea unsettles him, a blend of shock and suspicion tightening in his chest. Lifting her gaze toward him, Miss Kim asks whether he has a question. The suddenness of her attention startles him, and he quickly deflects, claiming that he understands the problem now. He offers no further words, determined not to probe the matter in front of others. Later, Miss Kim is alone in a toilet stall within the restroom. With the class in self-study mode, she has taken the opportunity to step away, intending to relax for a short while. She leans back slightly, trying to let the tension in her body dissolve. Her thoughts drift back to the moment earlier when Soo-hyun spoke to her, recalling that everything had been fine until that exchange. A restless, almost mischievous impulse stirs within her as she begins to entertain herself quietly, the edges of her mind still occupied by thoughts of him. But before she can fully lose herself in that moment, a voice calls out to her from somewhere in the restroom. Miss. Kim moves briskly down the hallway, her steps quick and deliberate, as though she is in a hurry to reach a destination. From a short distance away, Soo-hyun notices her sudden departure from the classroom immediately after self-study and wonders where she could be rushing off to. His eyes follow her until it becomes clear that she is heading toward the restroom. A flicker of suspicion passes through him, prompting him to quietly trail after her without drawing attention. He reaches the entrance, he catches enough to confirm his suspicions about what she is doing inside. The realization stirs a mixture of disbelief and opportunism in his mind. Stepping closer to one of the stalls, he knocks lightly on the door, his voice carrying a feigned note of concern as he asks if she is inside. He claims to have seen her stumbling on her way in, adding that her breathing sounds uneven, and offers to escort her to the nurse's office. From within the stall, Miss Kim tries to remain silent, her hope being that he will eventually lose interest and leave. But Soo-hyun persists, continuing to speak in that same calculated tone. He warns that he can hear other students approaching and pointedly asks whether he should leave the matter to the female students instead. As his words grow more threatening in implication, he casually adds that perhaps he should go and tell them himself. The tension in the stall tightens until Ms. Kim reacts. The door swings open abruptly, and with a quick, almost desperate movement, she grabs Soo-hyun by the arm and pulls him inside, slamming the door shut behind them. His gaze falls on her with a slow, condescending sweep, and his voice drops low as he remarks that this is exactly what he expected to find. He begins to speak down to her, his words sharpened by the memory of her past treatment toward him. She snaps back, telling him to be quiet, but he presses on, claiming that he had been wondering why she had suddenly stopped targeting him. Now he declares it is obvious she must have found another way to occupy herself. Ms. Kim refutes this, dismissing it as baseless nonsense. Yet the denial does nothing to slow the intensity of his tone. He accuses her of having lost her mind, of appearing almost desperate to be caught in such a compromising position. As his presence closes in on her, she tries to assert herself, reminding him that she is still his teacher. Yet her words falter as she finds herself unable to push him away. An unsteady weakness takes hold, her body unresponsive to the commands of her will. Recognizing her state, Soo-hyun makes his decision. He will take full advantage of the situation and deal with her on his terms. She snaps at him, remembering how she demanded to know what he thinks he is doing, even calling him unreasonable. Yet he continues, insisting that they haven't even begun the real challenge and pushing further. As he keeps going, he repeatedly asks how she feels now, standing alongside the student she always speaks down to. Despite the turn of events, she is startled by her own reaction. She knows she should tell him to stop, but the words refuse to leave her mouth. When it is over, he remarks, "Tell anyone about what happened today," though he hopes it will not be the last time. As Soohyun reflects on the events he shared with Miss Kim earlier in the day, a sense of satisfaction settles over him, brightening his mood in a way that is rare for him. His friend, Taemin, quickly notices the change, as he is well aware of how seldom Soohyun appears genuinely cheerful. It is unusual enough to surprise Taemin, who has grown accustomed to seeing Soohyun weighed down by the constant stress brought on by his teacher, Miss Kim. The memory of this ongoing tension lingers in Taemin's mind, making the difference in Soohyun's demeanor all the more striking. In his own thoughts, Soohyun considers how Miss Kim seemed different that day, carrying herself with a warmth that he had not experienced from her before. The possibility that she might continue to treat him in this new, softer manner gives him a quiet sense of hope. Taemin, however, feels a pang of envy as he contemplates Soohyun's situation, wishing he had a teacher like Miss Kim in his own life. Her striking beauty alone is enough to capture his admiration, and he privately believes that anyone fortunate enough to be on good terms with her holds a rare kind of luck. This subtle flattery only lifts Soohyun's spirits further, reinforcing his sense that he is in a uniquely fortunate position. As the conversation continues, Taemin begins to describe various small gestures and interactions he imagines would be pleasant to share with Miss Kim, if only he were close to her. Soohyun listens intently, committing these ideas to memory with the quiet intention of finding an opportunity to try them himself when the chance presents itself. The atmosphere shifts later in the day when Mr. Cho arrives at room 601 to check on the class and ensure everything is in order. His unannounced visit prompts Soohyun to quickly fabricate an excuse, claiming that he has been experiencing stomach discomfort for some time. Hoping to leave the room, he asks for permission to visit the nurse's office. Mr. Cho, however, advises him to wait until the roll call is complete, explaining that he will personally escort Soohyun to the nurse afterward. Soohyun makes another attempt to convince Mr. Cho that he is capable of going to the nurse's office on his own, but Mr. Cho remains firm in his decision, unwilling to allow him to leave without supervision. Rather than prolonging the discussion, Soohyun reluctantly agrees to wait until Mr. Cho is ready. When the time finally comes, they leave the classroom together and make their way down the corridor to the nurse's office. Upon entering, an unexpected sight greets them. Miss Kim is already there. The surprise is mutual. Mr. Cho did not anticipate seeing her in this place at this hour, and Miss Kim clearly did not expect him either. Their presence catches one another off guard, creating a brief but noticeable pause in the air. Mr. Cho takes note of her appearance, quickly deducing that she is unwell. Miss Kim explains that she has been feeling discomfort in her stomach, which is why she came to rest in the nurse's office. In turn, Mr. Cho mentions that Soohyun had been the reason for his visit, as the student had asked to be brought during roll call due to feeling unwell. There is a faint trace of frustration in his tone, shaped by his belief that the students in his care are overly dependent on him for even the smallest matters. As he glances around the room, Mr. Cho notices the absence of the nurse, which unsettles him. He voices his concern over the fact that Miss Kim is left unattended without medication, wondering why the nurse would step away at such a time. Miss Kim calmly explains that the nurse has only stepped out briefly to collect some supplies. Still, Mr. Cho shows his concern, offering to retrieve any necessary medicine on Miss Kim's behalf and deliver it to her later. Miss Kim politely declines, saying she is content to wait for the nurse to return. However, behind her composed expression, her thoughts move in another direction. She weighs the idea of leaving the room but hesitates, recalling Soohyun's earlier words, veiled reminders of what he might say or do if she failed to appear when he expected. Miss Kim begins to think of ways to encourage Mr. Cho to leave, reasoning that he must have other responsibilities to attend to, particularly the supervision of students in the dormitory. She subtly suggests that he return to his duties, believing that this would naturally draw him away. However, Mr. Burger Cho makes it clear that he has already arranged for someone else to cover his supervision, assuring her that he is free to remain. He then proposes, with a tone of casual concern, the idea of helping her pass the time by offering a massage while they wait for the nurse to return. Maintaining her composure, Miss Kim declines the offer, but before the conversation can move on, Soo-hyun unexpectedly interjects, revealing that she enjoys massages. This remark instantly shifts the attention back to her, and Mr. Cho, curious, inquires further about what kind she prefers. The question catches her off guard, leaving her momentarily at a loss for words. As she searches for an appropriate response, Soo-hyun edges closer and quietly murmurs a reminder that she must find a way to remove Mr. Cho from the nurse's office. This suggestion frustrates her, as she cannot ignore the irony that Soo-hyun was the one who brought Mr. Cho here in the first place. Nevertheless, she realizes that avoiding the situation altogether is no longer an option. Gathering herself, she turns toward Mr. Cho and proposes that Soo-hyun remain with her, explaining that he is one of her students and that she already has matters to discuss with him. She concludes by assuring that she is fine and that there is no need for him to worry about their well-being. Mr. Cho, however, refuses to accept this arrangement, insisting that he is responsible for Soo-hyun since the boy belongs to his dormitory. Just as the impasse threatens to linger, the sharp sound of his phone ringing breaks the moment,